It's deadline day, and the Pittsburgh Pirates are on the clock, just like everyone else. The Pirates won again in San Francisco yesterday to complete the sweep, even as winds swirl around the club. That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order, only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. It's deadline day in MLB, and to nobody's surprise, it's the topic today. We're going to talk a bit about what's already been done, the GM's history at the deadline here in Pittsburgh, and I'll wrap with some words of wisdom from a player soon to be departed, probably. The Pirates edged the San Francisco Giants 2-1 in 10 innings yesterday. And the Pirates scored the go-ahead run in the top of the 10th inning, obviously. Key hitters in this one were Spencer Horwitz. He went 2 for 4 with an RBI double. Henry Davis finally came through with a base hit. He had been, I believe, 0 for 21 at one point, but he drove in a run with a single. IKF and O'Neal Cruz each scored a run. Pitching standouts, there were a lot more of those than there were hitters. Mike Burrows, 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 7 Ks. Brilliant performance from Mike Burrows. I said on the short yesterday, post-game, Mike Burrows has done a lot of good stuff here recently. He's become somebody that shouldn't be looked at as a placeholder in this rotation. I know that's what he was seen as at one point, but I don't think so. I think he's a guy that you actually want to have in that rotation right now. He's really coming along and starting to stretch himself out. Carmen Mlodzinski, impressive again, 2 scoreless innings. And Isaac Mattson, where did you come from, Isaac Mattson? I mean, my goodness. Washington Wild Things is a better development than a whole lot of MLB teams. Honestly, if you're putting out somebody like Isaac Mattson, 2 scoreless innings, 3 strikeouts, earned the win, technically saved his own win. After the debacle that looked like it was starting to take place in the bottom of the 10th inning, I never thought Isaac Mattson was going to escape that inning clean. But 2 huge strikeouts, and man, was he fired up. Good to see, man. He's really been a good story this year. So I want to talk a little bit about what's already been done, okay? I mean, I'm sorry to shortchange the game and everything in the sweep, but it's just not the story of the day. The deadline is. So we have to talk about what's been done. I did a special show on Brian Hayes yesterday, so I'm not going to rehash all my thoughts on that. If you're interested in detailed thoughts, head over and check that one out when you're done listening to this one. But I mean, I think it's fair to say I've had more time to think about it. I haven't really changed my opinion. It's still a dump. I guess maybe I've come to learn a little bit more about the prospect, and I like him a little better. I still don't think that it's going to ultimately matter. I believe he's kind of blocked up as a shortstop. I just think there's other players that are better in this pipeline that are a lot closer. And you know, there's just not much else to say about that one. I'm sorry. I just don't want to rehash it. Taylor Rogers, I believe yesterday I was getting him confused with Tyler Rogers, and I'm sure his parents have done that a few times. But, you know, again, this is a guy that I think they could turn around and flip. So I'm not going to start worrying about him until I find out that he's actually still on the roster come Friday. They've obviously traded Adam Frazier. They did that a little bit earlier. That was like back in the middle of the month. They got Cam Devaney, older prospect, close to the league, should be able to slide right in and replace somebody like IKF later on. And then yesterday, I didn't do a special show for this one because I kind of told you I wasn't going to do that for Reynolds. But Caleb Ferguson goes to the Seattle Mariners. for Jeter Martinez, a left-handed pitcher who's 19 years old, years and years away, obviously. I'm not sure where to take that. He was the Mariners' 13th ranked prospect. The Mariners do have a pretty strong, pool of prospects, so I guess you could expect that that's an okay return, but it certainly does nothing for 2026. That said, you really shouldn't expect a lot for 2026 for these rentals. I actually was already kind of surprised they got one back for Adam Frazier. And the only reason they did really is because he's a really long in the tooth prospect who's hopelessly blocked there. They can look for other things like that, but nothing that's going to really excite people around here. The other guys that are really left on the board that could be traded, let's talk through them real quick, and I'll give you my comments on each one. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is the one I'm going to start with. First, let's talk about what I think I know. One, I believe Ben Cherington wanted to, and the baseball ops side of things, I should say, wanted to extend IKF into next year. And I believe that he's been told no. So that puts him in the trade bucket here. I believe we'll be looking at IKF getting traded. Tommy Pham should get traded. I think there's no doubt there. You should expect long away prospects for both of them, I would imagine. Andrew Heaney should get traded. I would think that's a no doubter. There should be takers for him, even if they see him as a bullpen arm or potentially a guy who could swing to the bullpen if they need him to. I think that's a guy that makes all the sense in the world to get traded. Now, Brian Reynolds, absolutely zero desire by this team to trade him. I know you've heard his name a couple times. I don't think you're going to hear his name anymore. If you do, I think it's just a death rattle of wishful thinking. I don't believe that's even on the table. I don't believe Oneil Cruz is really on the table. Joey Bart has recently popped up. There's been a few teams interested in his services. I'd be perfectly fine with moving on from him. Either Abraham Gutierrez can step in next year and be the backup catcher. They can bring Sullivan back up to finish this year. And no, it has nothing to do with Henry Davis. I know that you're disappointed in the bat with Henry Davis, but the glove is superior. And you need to just look at history. This team has brought in catchers on purpose that couldn't hit, like Austin Hedges, right? Yeah. Henry Davis is going to be the starting catcher next year. And I expect his bat to come along, but even if it doesn't, I expect him to be the starting catcher next year. And I just need a better defender as my backup catcher. And Joey Bart's not that, even if he hits a little. And he hasn't. David Bednar and Mitch Keller, I'm grouping them together because, as I understand it, the executives don't want them moved. I think they're missing the boat here big time if they don't move David Bednar. All right, one of two outcomes has to come with David Bednar. You either extend him for a couple years and make it make sense, or you trade him. I don't think this is a guy you can just take to arbitration and have next year be his last year, and then you're trying to trade him at the deadline or hold on to him and see what happens. David doesn't want to go. I get it. I'm sure if those feelings are strong enough, he's going to take something reasonable to stay here for a little while. Then the only side of the argument you really have is, are you worried that he's just going to fall back off the table or do the tipping thing he was doing again, or completely lose command of his curveball, whatever it is? Those are all concerns. But if you don't want to trade him, that has to be the alternative. You can't just go into next year with him again being at the very end of a contract. It'll be a rumor the whole freaking time. And I don't think his value is ever going to be this high again. Frankly, you'd have less control of him next year. So it's not about performance. It's about what you're actually selling. You'd be selling a true rental next year. This year, you're selling a guy that they can hold on to for next year. Get what I mean? So I wish they'd open their minds to that, but as I understand it, they don't have their minds very open to this one. As far as Mitch Keller goes, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it, everybody. It could happen. if only because I really do think they could get their socks knocked off by somebody real desperate. But I'm not 100% sure that package is gonna come. I'm really not. I hope they're listening. They say they are. But I think baseball ops is gonna get shut down on this. I don't think Mitch Keller's moving. I think you're looking at mostly Reynolds the rest of the way, maybe an outside shot at Joey Bart. It's still a decent amount of moves we're gonna have to cover, and we're gonna talk all through them. First thing I want to do, I think, if you stick with me here through the break, I want to talk about the ghost of deadlines past. Let's talk about what this guy's actually pulled off at the deadline in the past. Let's really go through it. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-hour energy transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need the extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I was on this hole the other day. It was an island shot, and all 4 of my buddies were like, we're going to make this shot. Not a single one of us made it. I wish we had had one of these 5-hour energies. Maybe it would have given us the boost we needed. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LockedOnGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th. On one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-hour energy shots today. All right, hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. First thing I got to do, besides my normal spiel of go ahead and subscribe and hit me with a like and comment and all that stuff, I just got to thank you guys very much. I've been putting extra shows out there, and you guys are finding them, and they're coming out at all different times because of the nature of trade deadline and everything. But you guys are finding them. The numbers are crazy good. Thank you so much for giving me your trust and showing up here to hear what I have to say about things. Let's go all the way back to 2020 for the ghost of deadlines past, right? Let's have some fun with it, right? Let's look back at what he's done. I think it's easy to forget some of these things that were actually deadline deals. So in 2020, they traded Josh Bell to the Nationals for Will Crowe, who we already know is pitching in Asia. He worked out in the bullpen for us for a little while. He was actually real good in the bullpen. The 1 year before he got hurt. The starting rotation did not go so well for him. But they got him as a ready-made, like, we need some arms, we need some help type acquisition. I don't think that they necessarily had long-term plans for him. Probably a lot along the lines of what they expected when they signed Bailey Falter, or when they acquired Bailey Falter. They probably thought, we're going to get a little bit of something out of him, but it's not going to be anything super special. You know what I mean? And I just think that that's one of those things that probably just didn't work out even as well as they had hoped, but I doubt they thought he'd still be here now, if you get what I'm saying. Eddie Yean, he was a lottery ticket in that deal. He is right now the AAA closer. He's got some decent numbers, but he's also got some concerning things. I still see him getting a shot in the Major League pen at some point, maybe even as early as this year. So jury's still out on that one. Big arm, big boy. We'll see what happens there. In 2021, this was a very active deadline for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Arguably their most active. Let's see. Do I go all the way back to the off season? I'm not sure I should. because we're trying to focus on deadline deals, right? That's a different environment. I will throw in there, just because of continuity's sake, this is the year that they moved Joe Musgrove, and they did this in the offseason. This was January. They moved Joe Musgrove. They got David Bednar, Andy Rodriguez, Omar Cruz, Drake Fellows, and Hudson Head all back. Hudson Head just retired from the game. Drake Fellows is in AAA right now. He's a starting pitcher. He's doing okay, but I mean, look at what he's behind. Omar Cruz is gone. Andy Rodriguez, I think you know what's been going on with him. And of course, David Bednar, who's up for his own sale at this trade deadline. Jamison Tyon went to the Yankees that January as well. Rowanzi Contreras, Miguel Yajure, Kanan Smith and Jigba, Michael Escado. Out of all of those players, Michael Escado is the only one that remains, and he has not progressed. He's in the low levels, all but forgotten as a shortstop prospect, really. That July, Adam Frazier goes to the Padres for Jack Sawinski, Tucupita Marcano, and Mitchell Miliano. I have no idea what's going on with Mitchell Miliano. I don't even remember his name, frankly. Tucupita Marcano gambled on baseball and has a lifetime ban. Not that that has anything to do with Ben Cherington. In fact, that didn't happen until he was reacquired by the Padres off waivers. And Jack Sawinski, you all know where he is and what he's doing. Clay Holmes went to the Yankees in exchange for Diego Castillo in Hoy Park. It's important to remember Clay Holmes wasn't Clay Holmes when he was dealt, but he certainly turned into Clay Holmes, didn't he? And Diego Castillo and Hoy Park were both problem children for the Yankees. They didn't feel like having them occupy 40-man spots anymore, and they were never, ever going to give them a shot in the majors. But the Pittsburgh Pirates certainly would. Tyler Anderson went to the Mariners for Carter Binns and Joaquin Tejada. Neither of those have mattered at all. One of them's gone all the way. Braden Ogle went to the Phillies that year in July for Abraham Gutierrez. Now, Abraham Gutierrez really could be a decent backup catcher as soon as next year. He's injured right now, or else I would think he'd be the logical call-up if you were to trade a Joey Bart. You'd hope Endy would be healthier, but he's not. Chances are if they trade Bart now, you're going to call up Sullivan. And I think you'll kind of just had what you had with Sullivan. He was okay. And at least for a backup, he'd be fine. They also traded their, at the time, closer, Richard Rodriguez, who we all, I think, knew was kind of a sham, for Bryce Wilson, immediate starter help, and Ricky DeVito. Ricky DeVito does not have a future here, and Bryce Wilson has since been moved on to the Brewers, and now he's somewhere else entirely, and who knows what's going on with him, but he didn't make it as a starter. July 30th, Austin Davis to the Red Sox for Michael Chavis. I actually say they got something out of Michael Chavis. I really would. He wasn't great, obviously, but he hit some home runs, and he played wherever the hell they needed him to play for a good long time. And for Austin Davis, a guy that I don't think you're going to see pop up in the Red Sox system, really, that wasn't that bad of a move, I guess, as far as deadlines go. Now you move into 2022. The only thing they really did of note in 2022 was really in the offseason, and that was Jacob Stallings going to the Marlins for Zach Thompson and Kyle Nicholas and Connor Scott. Zach Thompson's obviously gone, and he was a very poor starting pitcher. Kyle Nicholas looked great last year, looked awful this year. Let's hope for a rebound there. There's a lot of talent in that arm. I really don't think we're done with that yet. And Connor Scott's gone. 2023, Carlos Santana goes to the Brewers for Johnny Severino. Johnny Severino is in A-ball. He's hitting some home runs. He has a low average. Let's see if he can move. He does have power. They have identified power, and it is coming through. In July 27th, they moved Rich Hill and G-Man Choi to the Padres for Jackson Wolf, Estuar Suero, and Alfonso Rivas. Alfonso Rivas was that first baseman they tried to plug and play that didn't do anything, which we knew he wouldn't. Estuar Suero is in the minors. He's doing okay, but again, very low level yet. And lottery tickets take a long time, so it is what it is. And Jackson Wolf, I believe, is gone. Austin Hedges to the Rangers for international bonus pool money. That worked out great. I don't know who they signed for that money specifically, but that was pretty much what you could expect to get out of him. In 2024, Connor Joe to the Mariners for Zach DeLoach. Don't even remember him. Cash considerations. Honestly, don't even remember the player. Ryan Barucki to the Yankees for Kiner Delgado. Now, Kiner Delgado is an interesting prospect in the minors, and he's hitting for a lot of power. That could really end up being a decent deal, especially since they ended up getting Ryan Barucki right back, didn't they? So nothing wrong with that. And Harleen Garcia to the Orioles for a player to be named later. I got to be honest, I tried as hard as I could. Couldn't find a player to be named later that actually got named. I don't know if they did. This could be like the Corey Dickerson trade from years ago where they just never actually completed the deal and it's just gone. Yeah, that does happen sometimes. There's incentives baked into some of these trades every once in a while that you don't get publicized, but the player that gets traded has to do X, Y, and Z, or else there's no player ever. And that may very well be the case with Harleen Garcia. You know, he was injured when they moved him. I don't think he ever appeared. So chances are that was a clause where if he doesn't appear, okay, you don't get a player. But that was the deal. That's where we are. That's what has been done here at the deadline. Okay? I can't name you anything they've gotten except for David Bednar. And that was technically an off-season deal. Jack Sawinski, I guess, while he's struggling now, he did burst on the scene and hit a bunch of home runs the one year and looked like it was going to be a piece at least. Contributed for one season. Maybe that's a win if you traded a rental, but that wasn't a rental they moved. When we come back, words of wisdom from a soon-to-be departed player, specifically Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. All right, hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. All right, as the trade deadline looms, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa may be on his way out. But he left us with some parting wisdom that cuts to the core of the Pirates' team identity crisis. This was a lot from an interview that Kevin Gorman did with him from the Trib, and I thought especially poignant comments from him, really. Let's read these quotes. I feel like when we're going good, we'll turn into a slugging team for a week. All of a sudden, that goes cold. And we try to revert into a small ball team. We just ride the wave. We need to do a better job of identifying who we are as players and knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. I feel offensively, we're a young team and we don't know what we're good at and what we're bad at. When we get into situations, we're hoping for the best instead of understanding what we do well. I think other teams know what they do well. Wow. That's one quote from Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and my goodness, it puts a lot of things in perspective. Let's hear what he has to say just about a little bit more of the success of the team. It's contagious to really pour on success when you have a good week. And then not just a bad week, but a terrible week. You definitely ride the roller coaster. Offensively, guys are still trying to figure out who they are as players. Our pitchers are so far ahead that it doesn't allow our offense the time to develop or to see who we are and what kind of players we are offensively. That's one thing that as time goes, hopefully guys will start learning who they are and start turning into what kind of players they are. I just thought this was An unbelievable couple of quotes from IKF. He's been here all year. By all accounts, very popular in the room, very looked to leader. The Pirates love him in the bottom of the lineup. They love how he turns over the order. But their offensive inconsistency, man, he's dead on. It's exactly what it feels like's happening. They are riding a roller coaster. They do go into like spells where they're all hitting. They do go into deep, dark holes where none of them are. They feed off of each other. And as a team and as a unit, as an offensive unit, they try to change their identity based on how things are going. And I think it leads directly into these long losing streaks or long cold snaps. And I think it creates a lot of what they don't want to create here. The pitching maturity versus this lineup has been the great dichotomy all season long. The reason for optimism in any distance of time you want to think about, next year, next 3 years, even right now, if there's going to be success, you undoubtedly feel like it's coming from this pitching side of things. I don't even think they're at full strength, y'all. Like they don't even have like their full cast of characters in place that they want to have in this pitching staff. And they're worlds ahead of this offense. And what IKF said about not having the time because of how advanced the pitching is, he's right. It's what we talked about going into this season. We talked about that balancing of the scales. The pitching came along so much faster than the hitting that they have a very lopsided team. They have a team that can do one thing really, really well and a team that can do another thing really, really poorly. They need to balance that. This is not just about a down year for Brian Reynolds. This is about a lot more than that. It's about believing that Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz were enough. And then hope that everything else you bolted around them were going to be okay. They could not afford Brian Reynolds to have the type of season he's had if they were to have any success at all. He needed to be a lot closer to what 2021 Brian Reynolds looked like than what he is this year. I still believe that's in there, at least to a degree. I think better than what he's showing is in there. O'Neal Cruz has better than what he's showing too. It's just taken him a long time to A, recover from that injury, and B, mature. Moving to center field made a lot of sense. Should have probably done it a little bit earlier. I think he'd be better at center field by now. I think he'd probably be hitting better by now if only he was focused on that instead of trying to improve a part of his game that even if he succeeded in getting good at shortstop, was only going to be for a few years before he kind of just grew out of the position. You know, I think at some point you'd have to think about what you do with this guy when he starts bulking up. Couldn't bulk up at shortstop. Well, in the outfield, he can. He can put on a little bit of mass, and maybe that'll actually help him. I don't want him to put on so much that he gets slow, but that's something that has to happen. Those two alone aren't everything here. They brought in guys that needed work. Like Nick Gonzalez, not a finished product, but you got to give him playing time. Spencer Horwitz, not a finished product, but you got to give him playing time. Unfortunately, everywhere else, they were pretty locked in. They had vets everywhere. The guys they brought in for left field, not good enough, but they knew who they were. Isaiah Kiner for left, but not good enough, but he knows who he is. Brian Hayes, not good enough, but you knew what to expect out of him offensively, and you got what you expected out of him offensively. And now let's hope like hell the Reds get what we expect offensively. Because if that kid turns it around in Cincinnati, it'll be a lot more damning than just firing a GM here. There's going to be hair on fire people real pissed. Do you agree with IKF? Is this a leadership void, or is it just growing pains? Are they on their way to something? Do they need leaders to come in here and kind of help these players understand themselves, or should that be coming from the coaching staff? How do you prevent players from riding a roller coaster like that? These are all things that teams that want to build internally have got to conquer. And the thing that's most frustrating for me is their original hire to be the head of development here was a mental skills coach. And what's pathetic about that is the one thing I think that these hitters struggle with the most is the mental skills. I really do. And I don't mean that to call any of them stupid or talk about like not paying attention or anything like that. It's not that. But I think some of these guys they get discouraged and it just goes into their soul. Cabrian Hayes is a perfect example of this because Cabrian Hayes has been a quiet and clearly frustrated member of this team for the better part of 4 years already. It was no secret, I think, within the community that he wanted out. Been going on for a minute. He wasn't happy here last year even. And from what I understand, a little bit of an issue in the room. We'll see if that starts leaking out a little bit more as time goes on here. My guess would be not this year, but I would bet in the off season you'll start hearing some rumblings about things that may or may not have been said. I don't blame him though. He was a good defender. I blame the Pirates for never being able to teach him how to hit. Like to me, like it was such an easy fix. Like he turned into a line drive hitter and you needed to just embrace that and let him be a line drive hitter. Teach him how to effectively hit line drives all over the field. This team just held on to the fact that he could be a power hitter for like the longest time, and it made him impotent. It would be like doing the same thing with Spencer Horwitz. If every time Spencer Horwitz swung the bat, he was trying to hit a home run, his at-bats and his production would look an awful lot like Cabrian Hayes. But he knows better. He knows he doesn't have that kind of power. He can hit some home runs, but he's not going to hit home runs by trying to hit home runs. So he has a short, compact swing so he can get base hits. That may not be perfect for first base, but I bet it looks better than it did with Cabrian Hayes at third. So maybe nature is healing a little bit. Maybe there are players with different mentalities that are coming in here now, and things will change. But ultimately, the track record's not been great for these deals. I'm not sure that I necessarily want them doing much more than the Reynolds, if I'm honest with you. I don't want them to miss any opportunities, but based on their track record, maybe the opportunities are best left missed. That's all I got for you today so far. If a major trade happens, I'll try to jump on and do another show. If not, I'll definitely do a short and I'll cover it tomorrow. I have my other show, Pirates Fan Forum, will be on tonight at 8 o'clock, and I'll be on the MLB Squad show on Locked On tonight that'll drop tomorrow morning. We're going to cover the trade deadline in disgusting amounts for you. So tune in, be around, and let's go Bucks.